I thought I'd go live because there's just loads of cool stuff happening for us at the moment, and there's no real agenda to this. I just wanted to just update, see some of the things that's been happening for us since COP26 has happened, really. I'm not being rude. I am just checking my phone to make sure that we are live on all the various channels. And yes, I can see myself. Fourth wall break within a fourth wall break. What is interesting as well is the studio that we're in. And I can call it a studio now because it started off as a humble garden shed. Myself and Sharon converted it over a weekend and put lovely soundproof foam, which you might not be able to see on the camera, and floor tiles, and we put chairs, loads of cool stuff. There's a Rick and Morty picture there of myself and John, and more importantly, this week, a fantastic company called Podcast Pro, based in Manchester, came over and installed all the equipment that I'm using now. So we have beautiful lighting, which I can adjust. We can make it darker, we can make it cooler as well. Although when I did this with Sharon, oh, look at that. Oof, nobody wants that. Behind the scenes, look at that. It's all so fake. When I did this with Sharon earlier, she didn't like the cool lighting, so we had to make it look like we were in a tanning booth. Got the cool lights. We've got microphones, fantastic microphones, the headphones as well. We've got a fantastic Sony camera that I'm looking at now. When I'm looking down here, I'm looking at a beautiful iMac, which I'm not really a Mac sort of person. I mean, I've got iPhone and watch, things like that, but I've never really used Apple in terms of computers. So it just made sense to do it, actually, because they've got iMovie on it. They've got things like that, which helps for editing after we've been filming the podcast. Well, thank you, Sharon, for the comment. There you go, look, Swanky Swank Studio. So if you do comment during this live, I can put that up as well. So yeah, feel free to get involved. We've also got a Rode Class A servo-based amp. Now this thing here, I can't show you because it's quite heavy and it's not stuck to the table, but I don't want to move it in case anything unplugs. But it is beautiful. I mean, I can change the sounds. I've got my phone connected to this. So if I wanted to do a calling on the podcast or play TikTok videos or any sound connected to my phone, I can do that with this equipment. I've got sound buttons as well. I don't know if you'll be able to hear these because we are on StreamYard, but if you are watching this and I press... That was the wah 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 button. If you hear that, then great. If not, that's absolutely fine because that's what it comes through, like when we do the podcast. But we're really pleased. We had some issues with the camera in terms of overheating because we are in a soundproof box. So when the lights are on, the computer's on, you've got bodies in here. The camera was having some heating issues. But I went out and bought a fancy air conditioning unit, which is sat in the corner now, which helps us keep the room cool. I haven't got it on now because I've cooled the room, but it can be a little bit noisy considering how sensitive these microphones are. But the reason why I wanted to go live was to talk about some of the things that we've been seeing from COP26 and some of the things that I've also been seeing bizarrely in the news, which I thought was quite interesting. We're a digital FM, as we've seen. Oh, that's my watch talking to me. Found it on the web. We're a digital FM, as I've mentioned before. Anybody who follows our channels or our socials knows that we focus on traditional electrical engineering, but integrating IoT technology, but more importantly, underpinning that through fantastic CX. And we've been doing this now for about 4 years. And I remember when we first started 4 years ago, it was very difficult to have these conversations and get in front of people because they just didn't understand the concept of digital FM. They didn't know what the difference was between a traditional FM and a digital FM. For us, a traditional FM is someone who will do your hard and soft FM services, but can't offer the optimization side of buildings through technology. Whereas for us, a digital FM is we will do the hard engineering side. We don't look at the soft. We will look at the hard engineering side. But at the same time, we also have our own IoT platform, our own developers, sensors, etc., that we then put into our clients. Now, you could argue that it's getting to be less and less unique, that concept. But for us, what makes it very hard to replicate is the CX side. So yes, you can go and buy, if you felt so wished, if you wanted to, an IoT platform, or you could partner with someone. Quite easy to do. Some of the big FM companies are doing it. But if you don't then integrate customer experience processes and strategies into that offering, you'll find that it's very hard for that to stick with your client, because unfortunately change takes time. And what we've been finding is over the past 4 years, the conversations that were very difficult at the start are difficult still, but they're getting a little bit easier. And what is amusing is since COP26, clients that we spoke to 2 years ago, even a year ago, about building optimization, energy efficiencies, things like that, we just couldn't get those deals away for various reasons. But now those conversations have been reignited again as a result of COP26, and these organizations, who they are large organizations, now starting to go, ooh, I think we need to do something with this, with our ESG journey, our sustainability. And in some ways it's frustrating, because you think, well, if we would have pulled the trigger on those deals a year ago, 2 years ago, you would have been, a year or 2 years down the line. You could have had COP26, and then you could have proudly stated, look, we are a year on this. We've got all of our energy signatures mapped within our buildings. We know where the energy goes once it comes inside the building. We've had trials of different technologies. We've optimized our BMS system, our HVAC, whatever that might be, and we've saved X amount of energy, which ultimately results in carbon saved and also cash saved. But we are where we are. Hopefully, this isn't a case of a post sort of honeymoon period with COP26, because it's serious. We need to do something with it. I find it fascinating when I listen to the news that everybody talks about COP26, and politicians especially say great things, but I'm not really seeing much action. And if you're watching this and you're a big corporate, maybe you have quite a lot of buildings, or even a big energy signature or footprint within just one big building, depending on what type of client you are, you need to be very careful these days of how you position yourself in regards to how you are targeting your emissions, because it is very easy to produce a sustainability report. It's very easy to produce any environmental initiatives that you believe you can hit. And what I mean by that is you need to be mindful that you're not putting targets out there which, just by the fact of how your business operates, you're going to get there naturally. What is the stretching goal? What is going to change the model of your business? What is going to ultimately make you more efficient, make you more dynamic, and also save you a load of cash, but also do great things for the environment? There are a lot of smart people out there now that will scrutinize your efforts in regards to ESG, and they will hold you to account. And quite rightly as well, because if you are putting something out there on the public domain and you don't have the data to back it up, then you are leaving yourself exposed. And our experience would say that I could confidently go and have a look at a number of large organizations' sustainability reports, and I could be pretty confident to suggest that if you could ask the right questions, you'd be pretty surprised about what you would find in regards to the lack of knowledge about what is going on. And this isn't Scope 3 emissions conversation. This is direct in their business. You'd be surprised at how little they know in regards to their impact. Now, that isn't a stick to beat people up because we are where we are. But if you are, my watch just keeps on talking to us. I do apologise. I think I'm not even going to say anything to my watch because I think it's going to get very excited. But yes, it's not a stick to beat people up. But in 2021, with COP26 just done, if you don't have a plan in place or be confident around that plan that you're going to put in place, then pretty soon you're going to be left wanting, and it's going to be quite embarrassing. But it's not that hard to do. It's quite simple to do. I remember, funnily enough, I saw on Twitter today a guy that I really admire, Jordan Peterson. He's at Cambridge. Right now he's at Cambridge, and he's putting his pictures up, punting down the river. He's going into the library and he's doing all the stuff you would expect a tourist to do, a Canadian tourist to do as well when they go to Cambridge. But the fact that it's Jordan Peterson is it's amazing for me, especially because I do very much admire Jordan Peterson. But when I did the sustainability master's course at Cambridge, yes, you can go right down into the detail in terms of specific initiatives, government legislation, what's relevant to a geographical location, even down to village, individual crop level. Of course, you can do that. But for you and me watching this, and maybe you're watching this within the UK, for example, I'm in Leeds at the moment, those challenges seem just so big. And you think, well, where do I start with that? What do I do? How can I help someone halfway across the world by, and I make widgets, or I do something with cornflakes or cereal or whatever that might be. For us, what we always say is it very much starts with just monitoring and understanding what you're doing. Yes, having the knowledge around environmental policies and legislation and taxes and how these schemes work is important, because one, you need to protect yourself as an organisation, but also you need to make sure that you're not impacting people unnecessarily based on the output of your operation as well. But also it doesn't have to be that scary. It can start with just monitoring what you're using. But there's still a lot of resistance to change with that, as we've been finding over the last couple of weeks. Even when you try to educate around monitoring live data from an energy signature point of view, to those who might not be used to that technology or not aware of that technology, it can seem too good to be true. So if you have manual meter readings, is a great example. Running around doing manual meter readings is very archaic to do that. There's no need to do that these days. And also, taking manual meter readings isn't helpful from a reduction point of view, because all you're doing is taking a snapshot in time which has already passed. That data has already been emitted, that carbon is in the atmosphere, that energy is being consumed, cost has been spent, however you want to cut it from an energy point of view. But what if you could look at that building and say, once that energy comes into the building, and that could be from the main incomer, once that comes into the building, how much is that in terms of volume of use? Once you can work that out, that's very powerful. And then you can visualize that. So I can show you exactly what a building is doing from an energy point of view anywhere in the world, any point in time, live. Great. But what if that building is 15 stories high? What if that building has also got some sort of production facility on there? Labs maybe, machining equipment, lots of AC, lots of lighting, lots of sockets, as you would imagine from a big office, loads of different equipment, showing you what that building is doing from an energy point of view from a lump sum is not really going to tell you much other than, great, I can dial in onto my IoT platform and I can see the energy signature of that building. So I know building A is using X amount of megawatts, is emitting X amount of tons of carbon, and it's also costing me Y. Great. But then what if you could take building A and turn it into building A.1, and you take that energy that's going into the building and then you break that down and you say, well, once that energy comes into that building, 5% of that goes off to the lighting, another 5% goes to the AC, 30% goes to the production level, and then the rest breaks down accordingly across that site. Okay, now we're getting somewhere now. We're getting more and more into the detail. But if you take that 30% of the production, you could go, well, okay, I know that 30% of the energy that comes into my building goes to production. Great. But in production, I've got a machining press, I've got maybe balers, I've got wash machines, I've got a furnace, whatever that might be. You then go, okay, well then let's go further. Let's now go and say that 30% that goes into that production facility, 60% of that energy goes on the furnace, another 20% goes onto this, 5% goes into that, and then you break it down even further. Great. So I know that across my estate, the energy signature of my building, a big chunk of that is going on to the furnace, which you would imagine, for example. But what if you had set production times for that furnace? What if you could tweak and change your usage of that equipment based on the cost of energy at that specific time of day? But without data and knowing that, you can't, it's difficult to play with this stuff. It's a lot of guesswork, because once you start to know the energy signature of your building and then you understand how the energy then breaks down across that building, that is just the start. Because as we say here in MKL, you've got to get away from thinking of putting in energy management technology, for example, as it is just energy management technology. It's not. It is the starting point of your optimization journey, because that data will show you things that you didn't know was happening. How do you know? So if you're taking manual meter readings, just let me take a drink. If you're taking manual meter readings, how do you know if a compressor's kicking on at 2 o'clock in the morning, or the AC is being left on in a meeting room, for example? You don't. You just don't. But with live data, you can put alerts and alarms onto that data to say anything past 5 o'clock, if it goes over X amount of kilowatt hours, send in a report, time and date, stamp it, but alert someone. Now, where that starts to get really interesting is when you've got critical assets or critical infrastructure on your site. So now we're moving a little bit beyond just the energy. As I said, this is just a start. because, for example, an energy management system, yes, it helps you manage your energy, which is what it says on the tin. But you could also take that energy management system and then start to look at it from a critical asset point of view, critical infrastructure. So if you have server rooms or lab equipment or whatever that might be, what about if you could say, I'm going to put some temperature sensors into that server room or on that piece of equipment. I'm going to put water sensors in case there's any leaks near it or the AC leaks. But I'm also going to put a CT around the circuit, which is powering the AC to that area or that room. Now, once you know all that, and once you can pull that data out and visualize it, then that critical asset or that critical infrastructure almost, you could say, has 24/7 wraparound care monitoring. Because with technology, with sensors, with data and visualization, that is not going to be someone arguing with their partner and not coming into work the next day to do whatever they need to do on their general PPM schedule, or getting stuck in traffic, or keys getting lost, or whatever it might be. The data and the sensors are always watching. Could be Christmas Day, doesn't really matter. Bizarrely, that technology doesn't take Christmas Day off, but it's always watching. And then once you start to know that, then not only are you optimizing your building from an energy point of view, yay, ESG, but now you're starting to think a little bit differently around, well, how can we use some of this technology to monitor some of the equipment we've got? And monitoring is just one stage, because our experience would show when you start to talk to clients around IoT integration and control of assets, some clients are a little bit more liberal than others. Others are not. Most just want to start with visualizing. Show me what's going on. Help me understand what's going on. Build weird and wonderful and beautiful IoT dashboards. Help integrate this through Sharon's expertise from a CX point of view. So once a technology is in, it's not just a case of throw the boxes into a plant room or on a wall. There's your data, there's your dashboard, disappear. No, that is an extremely small part. That's the easy part to this, is putting the technology in. Even I would be so bold to say, getting the client to agree and sign off a PO, and then getting the technology in, easy. Bread and butter is that stuff. But we're just about to do a 10-part series on the Here to Tim Pot 2 podcast around CX, but more so using the book that we published just to make it fun and engaging, so it's not boring. But also in there's a lot of talk in regards to resistance to change, because we see that constantly. And once you start to put this technology in, people will, I would say, will get nervous around this, because when you start saying live, alerting, reporting, monitoring, always watching, that terminology can be quite scary to some. But we know, because if you're watching this, I'd like to think that you're enlightened in that way. We know that that isn't the case, but there's a lot of people out there that can be quite nervous when you start to put technology in, because it is always watching and monitoring and alerting and reporting. But that's a great thing, because this is where the CX side of it comes into play, because you need to sit with the engineers, you need to sit with the people on site, you need to sit with whomever is going to be interacting with or impacted by the technology going in, so they are fully aware of what part they play. And they do have a part to play. Technology, we're not at a point at the moment, because we don't live with Cyberdyne Systems Model 10101. We haven't got cyborgs knocking about yet. So we do need people. We do need engineers. We do need people to fix equipment once it breaks. but the technology will monitor that equipment for you. I mean, myself and Sharon, we went to, I think it was the Excel Centre a couple of weeks ago in London, and at the Excel Centre they had a CX seminar ongoing and a building optimization seminar. I have to say, the CX seminar was just awesome. It was just awesome. I mean, they had the DeLorean there from Back to the Future, loads of gaming, gamification, cool stalls, cool people. It was just great. And then you walk down the hall and you go to the building optimization. And from my point of view, and being honest, it was a bit of a snooze fest. Now, I get excited around building optimization because why wouldn't you? This is the sort of business we're in. But if it was up to me and it was my money, my budget, I would have definitely taken the inspiration from the CX conference and put that into the building optimization conference. So, Sharon, if you're watching this live or you're going to watch it back, that's some lessons for us for the hackathon that we're going to do over the course of 2022, which I may as well talk about that now, actually. So within MKL, we talk about humanizing technology, which is a little bit of a more top-line comment based on what I said before around helping people once the technology goes in. So humanizing technology. So how do you make it real for them? So next year we're going to launch a hackathon, where we're going to invite people to come in, and we're going to give them a challenge, and they're going to hack it. And what I mean by hack it is they're going to design ideas of how you make this better, but from a digital customer experience point of view, which Sharon just said. Definitely expos need to be exciting, as will our hackathon. Yeah, you must have been watching live then. Yeah, so in the hackathon, we're going to do it from a like a mini festival. So nothing big, nothing fancy, a little far away. Nothing big, nothing fancy, but around maybe a couple of hundred people, some stands, some stalls. We'll get some sponsors, and this is about trying to take building optimization out of the enigma that it can currently be in. And we ask, and I would say it's an enigma because people were right at the tip of the spear with this, with some of the clients that we're dealing with and working with, taking it out of that an enigma box and bringing it into this is just the way it is. And it will get there eventually. It just will. You remember when cloud computing first came out, or even, God forbid, the internet, chat rooms, things like that. The technology will move along at such a pace that it will just be the way. But what we need to make sure is what the way looks like is something that a facilities management or building manager can not only understand, but they know exactly how it works, what benefit it has for their organization, and they can easily sell it into their business as well, rather than it being, I need a load of people from NASA to come and rewire the building and it's going to cost £1 million. It doesn't have to be that way, and it isn't in that way. I mean, we've gone toe to toe with some quite big and well-known IoT companies when it comes to winning work, and we found that when we've been successful, in regards to the cost comparison, obviously we never see the true cost of the submission, because that's not the right thing to do. But when you're told that you're 60-70% more efficient in terms of cost, and we're making good margin on this, you're 60-70% cheaper than the competitor that you were up against. It just shows you that the building optimization game is not just about swelling your head count, because that obviously has to get passed on to the customer, and this is almost a barrier to helping people to scale, to be able to do or bring technology into their business to understand what IoT means, and then ultimately helping it go to scale. We're not we haven't got investment in MKL. We didn't want to do that. Many reasons why we didn't want to do that. We didn't want to give away any equity for one, but also the harmony of the senior management structure here, it just works. It works really well for us. And my still concern about bringing in an external party to sit on that board is, would that change the dynamic? Because the dynamic at the moment works really well for our customers, and I want to protect our customers more than bringing in an investor to then scale our business so quickly that we balloon our headcount, and then ultimately where almost our hand is forced to then pass on those costs to our client, and then a product that was X price a year ago is now Y. You're not getting anything different other than maybe a fancier brochure and a couple more heads to cover. And that's not the way we want to do this, and that's not the way we have done it. And that's the reason why it's taken us 4 years to get to this point, whereas maybe some startups that are getting into this field and go for investment are bigger and more sophisticated than us within the next 6 months. But what I would argue about that is how strong is the core? What foundations is that built on? Because ours is very strong, unshakable in a lot of ways, and that's what we built the business from. The core is that traditional electrical engineering mixed with IoT. So it isn't a case of we've just had engineering and we've then bolted on a load of technology. It has been intermingled from the start, but at the same time ensuring that customer and customer experience was very much in the center of that. So I haven't got anything else I wanted to say. I think I've been talking now for about half an hour. So yeah, there was no real agenda to this other than to come on and just say, from COP26, we're seeing a lot more interaction around building optimization. People are now starting to wake up to the fact that they have to do something with this. Workforces are now starting to look to their organizations to say, what are you doing with this? Tenants are looking to their landlords to say, what are you doing with this? And then landlords are looking to the FM providers and going, well, what are you doing with this? So everybody's sort of looking around, and for us, we're the ones hopefully putting our hand up and going, we can do this. We can help you. It's not scary. It's quite straightforward, but let's start the journey together for visualizing what's going on in your operation, and then see where that then data takes us. So yeah, appreciate if you're watching it live. If you're watching this back, thank you, and yeah, have a great weekend.